news continue. And whenever we think those criminals cannot get any law, they continue to surprise us with all the promises that for 2 years, if you really want to stop the war, just give us our hostages. Just give us our hostages, the war will be over. They got their hostages only to continue the war. Because despite all those who continue to try to give them benefit of doubt, their real plans are not the hostages and are not Hamas. Their real plan is a full extermination of a whole people, a campaign of annihilation and land theft and colonization. That's why no one should trust their promises. No one should give them a benefit of doubt. And anyone who, for whatever reason, defended them or their situation or had any sympathy for their position, hopefully they should be very aware now that genocidal regimes, genocidal nations, genocidal leaders cannot be negotiated with, cannot be trusted, that genociders and genocidal people can only be stopped by force, by sanctions, by expulsion from the world and the international community. They are giving us the proof every day that this is the only thing that stops them. Talking to them, negotiating with them, offering gestures of goodwill, hoping for peace after 2 years of a genocidal campaign, after more than 500,000 lives lost, the starvation of more than 1 million children, and yet these people seems that they did not get enough of the blood of the innocents and the children and the mothers and the fathers of Gaza. This regime and this mentality and all their supporters, especially in the United States, are a threat and a danger to humanity and to peace and stability, not just in the region, but all over the world. And it is a renewed call for all of us, all people of conscience, all people care about life, about peace, about humanity, that we need to double down and keep up the pressure. And I myself is guilty of every time falling for these people and trusting that this time it will work. Maybe they had enough. Maybe we can believe their promises. But every time you trust them, they prove us wrong. So thank you, everyone. That's why we are here, because we want to hear what we can do as a community. We want to hear from eyewitnesses on the ground who've been to Gaza many times. We want to hear from the people of Gaza who unfortunately might not be able to show up today because the genocidal criminal Israeli entity broke the ceasefire and it's bombing the people of Gaza all over the place. And many of our guests feel unsafe or trying to prepare or trying to hide from the bombs. May God protect all of them. I'm going to give this to Dr. Karama to say a few things, then we can introduce our speaker, Dr. Firoz Sidwa. We are really honored to have Firoz with us here. Doctor is an American surgeon. He has been one of the very consistent medical voices on the front line on missions to Gaza many times to help, to be there for the victims, try to save lives despite all the risk that he and his colleagues undertook every time. But he continued to be solid, persistent, with very principled position as a human being and as a doctor. He also has been a strong voice exposing the crimes of this entity in Gaza against the victims, against the civilians, and he published many papers along with his colleagues as eyewitnesses to these crimes. And we are happy to have him today and to hear his latest publication on behalf of the doctors who have been witnesses to the genocide in Gaza. Karama?
Yeah, thank you, Nidal. Just I don't have anything to add. Welcome, Firoz. We love to hear from you, and thank you for joining us. Please.
No, thanks everybody. Thanks for having me. I first learned about Doctors Against Genocide, I think just a week or two after I got back from Gaza the first time. I came to the conference in Dearborn. It was really great to meet so many of you. Um, it was the first time I actually knew that there was a coalition of healthcare workers working on these issues. I honestly just didn't know before that. Um, so I'm really grateful for the work you guys do, and I hope you keep it up because it's challenging, as we all know. And it's frustrating, like Nidal's frustration is we, we've all seen how duplicitous the US and Israel are um, when it comes to the political aspects of this and just having no compunction. The lying has really gone to a new level under the Trump administration, but even under Biden and, Obama before him, it's just it's pretty shocking. But anyway, the so yeah, so there I've been part of two recent publications that I think are actually worth looking at. I think they're actually neither publication is actually interesting for anybody who's on this call. You all know exactly what they say. Um, but what is, I think, interesting is the way they got published and what we were allowed to say in different venues. So the first was a just a perspective piece in the New England Journal of Medicine. It's not research in any way. Um, and this was interesting. Getting this published took about 6 months of people using personal, I don't have any personal connections to the New England Journal of Medicine, but it took months and months of people who are close to the people who run the New England Journal of Medicine, who are most of whom are Israeli physicians. I'm the only non-Israeli citizen on this paper, if you can believe it. It's a completely strange way to talk about Gaza, but or about the Palestinians at all. One of them, Yasmin, is a Bedouin woman who lives in Israel, and the other two are Jewish Israelis. Of course, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but it is strange that the first paper that actually addresses not just a personal perspective, like, oh, I did this, I did that in Gaza or in Israel or wherever, but actually discusses the history, the health impact, the politics, doesn't include anybody who is a Palestinian living in Palestine. It was very, very odd. But the other thing that's unusual about this paper, and I wouldn't recommend seeking it out because it's really not that useful of a paper. It doesn't tell you anything you don't know already. But the other thing that you'll notice is that the word genocide doesn't even appear in the paper. It's in the references, which is nice because now if somebody searches for New England Journal of Medicine genocide, then it does pop up, like if you Google it. But the word genocide isn't even in the text. And it's interesting why, I'll tell you, the four of us, me and the three other authors, what we wrote originally and sent to the journal, they rejected outright, wouldn't even consider it. Um, Even though it's pretty close to what we eventually published. But so we sent them this paper, this perspective, and they rejected it. Naftali is he's a pretty senior pulmonologist at Yale, and he has connections to these types of journals. So he really he called his connections there And they said that the what people told them is that everybody on the staff wanted to publish this. Everybody who saw it wanted to publish it except the chief editor. So and he was the main block, and Naftali knew him too, so he started trying to, schmooze him, I guess. And so eventually they just rejected it again. So we tried to shop it somewhere else. Nobody else was interested in publishing it either. And because Naftali's personal connections were strongest at the New England Journal, we went back there. So he said, look, you guys, you really should consider this. It's becoming like an open joke in the American medical community that American, like important journals don't talk about this. And it's one of the great health disasters of the, not just the 21st century, but even of the 20th century. And so they said, okay, fine, look, we'll look at it again. So the opinion editor, for maybe her name is perspective editor, I can't remember, but the editor of the opinion part of the journal um, looked over it and said, "No, this is fine. So it seems completely reasonable. Everything is heavily cited." We had many more references than they allow in a perspective piece, so they forced us to cut some of them down. So we had to make some uncited references, but that's not a big deal. So we did. So then it went to the higher ups, and the only objection that they really had after they had agreed to at least consider it, the only objection they had was they said, we don't want you to use the word genocide. So we said, okay, fine. You don't want us to personally call it genocide. We can understand that because we're not international scholars. Like it shouldn't be our judgment that it's genocidal. Fine. So we changed it so that it wasn't us saying Israel is committing genocide, or I should say, it wasn't us saying the US and Israel are committing genocide in Gaza. We were quoting from the Physicians for Human Rights Israel report about the attacks on the medical system, where they concluded that it was genocidal. And we even had genocidal in quotes, like it was in a quote from the report. And they said, no, we don't want you to say that either. And we said, but what are you talking about? It's in we're referring to a document. We're referencing something. In the medical literature, you can say any damn thing you want as long as you put a footnote at the end of it. Everybody knows that. And in fact, the editors usually don't even check the footnotes to make sure they're accurate in any way, shape, or form. There's actually it's a huge scandal throughout the medical literature citing things that people actually didn't say at all. But so they said no, you can't say it there. It was okay. So we asked them, how would you have us describe this? Like we're citing a report that is entitled where genocide is in the title. The whole point of the report is that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. It's a considered conclusion and it's coming from Israelis. Like we don't really understand oh, well, if you do that, it'll turn people, like they had all these excuses. It'll turn people off. People won't listen. And it was like, okay, so that was kind of an interesting moment to me where that was the excuse. The real reason was just that they didn't want the political hassle that'll come with having the word genocide. Fine. But they're just not, honest enough to admit that, I guess. But the excuse was kind of interesting. Like if you think about it for a second, the editor of the New England Journal of Medicine is saying that the people who read the New England Journal of Medicine are such fanatics committed to genocide that they just don't they can't even stand to hear that it's the conclusion of a prominent Israeli human rights organization. They can't even they just don't want to be bothered, like it was kind of a weird thing. You can't imagine it. The idea that the readership of the New England Journal of Medicine is so fanatically committed to murdering people, that's a pretty wild, it just kind of does your head and you don't even know how to think of it. How do you even process such a claim? But anyway, so then so finally we said, okay, so the four authors, we all talked together and uh we came to the conclusion, and I actually talked to some people in Gaza as well, and I asked them what they would prefer. Everybody in Gaza said, no, please publish something. It doesn't matter if it says genocide or not. We don't care about that specifically. As long as, and I sent them what we had written. They said, no, this is good. Not that it's good, but they said that they would prefer if it was published than not, even if the word genocide was taken out. So we said, oh, okay, fine. Let's go ahead with it. So we took the word genocide out and we changed it to crimes against humanity, which again is less precise, less clear, and not even an accurate citation. Really, it's just a totally inaccurate citation to say that Physicians for Human Rights Israel claimed that Israel is committing crimes against, they didn't. They said genocide, it's a different thing. But anyway, but this gets even more ridiculous. So then we said, okay, fine, we'll change it to crimes against humanity. Okay. Then they said, you also can't, but they said there's another place where you said genocide in the piece. And we said, well, no, there isn't. What are you talking about? They said here in, whatever paragraph, you called, you referred to people as genocide scholars. So we're talking about Raz Segal, Omar Bartov, Mary, like the standard list that you hear all the time now. And we said, yeah, well, they are. They're genocide and Holocaust scholars. That's their field of study. And they said, yeah, you can't call them that. I said, what are you talking about? What the hell are we supposed to call them then? You can call them anything else. You just can't call them genocide scholars. And we're like, this was where my mind was truly blown. I actually completely checked out at this point. If it wasn't for Naftali, because I just said this is fucking ridiculous. Sorry, I shouldn't swear. I just said this is completely ridiculous. I don't even know how to talk to somebody who says that I can't. Like, nobody says when you're talking about a physicist, you should refer to them as a scientist. You call them a physicist, right? And that's just normal. No, if somebody is
You
a
cannot call Firoz a
historian,
doctor. We cannot call you a doctor. We have to
yeah,
find
no, exactly.
another name
Imagine
for
being
you.
like he's someone with a doctoral degree. Oh, you mean a doctor? Like, is that what you're saying? Completely idiot. I mean, this was that it was bonkers to me, and I was really really shocked because it's a funny thing because in the New England Journal of Medicine, I don't know anybody who works there personally, so I don't want to speak too much about them or make too many assumptions about them, but I think we can all assume that the New England Journal of Medicine, which is housed in Harvard's Medical Library in Boston, is a so-called liberal space, right? It's staffed largely by liberal Americans who, if you were to ask them their political sensitivities, they would say, "Oh, these Trump people, they're so crazy, they're so this and that. They hate science, they don't listen to logic, they're irrational," right? This is going to be their response. And you're telling me that I can't describe people by like there are genocide and Holocaust sections of libraries. You know what I mean? Like it's just a recognized field. It's just completely absurd to say that you can't talk about. There's a whole international association. There's actually several international associations with them. There's chairs of genocide and Holocaust scholars at every Ivy League university. Like it was just outrageous. But anyway, Naftali told me to calm down, and he continued to lobby them, and eventually they agreed to publish this. But again, it was just it was a good lesson for me. That not again not the paper itself is not actually that interesting. I don't even think it's that good, but it was an interesting lesson to me in how how weirdly fanatical in some ways our own profession can be in the United and the upper echelons of our own profession. It's very, very strange. It's good that they publish something, right? It's better than nothing. At least according, yeah, that's what my colleagues in Gaza felt. So I trusted their judgment. The but at the same and I'm hoping it's a step in the right direction, not a wall that's been built that we can't get past. I mean, if that analogy makes any sense. Um, but it's an amazing thing to think that the most prestigious medical journal in the world, the New England Journal of Medicine has a higher impact factor than the Lancet. It's huge. The most prestigious medical journal on earth, or at least in the English speaking world, I don't know about China or something, uh, is just this fanatically committed to being inaccurate, if as long as the political cause is the right one. That's pretty because if I'll tell you a journal with similar standards of rigor is the Journal of the American College of Surgeons, and I've published there as well. So I've worked in Ukraine several times since the Russian invasion in 2022, and just doing educational work, not working in the actual front. And me and I think probably 30 other people. There's a ton of authors on that paper, but me and a bunch of other people, we wrote a paper about our experience teaching ATLS in Gaza. It's a scientific paper. It's not a like a perspective. And the intro to that paper, sorry, the introduction to that paper, I can't remember the exact words, but it says something like Russian forces have destroyed more than 1,000 hospitals in Ukraine. And then it gives a citation to the WHO. And I thought to myself, what? No, they haven't. It's completely ridiculous. What are you talking about? And so I looked at the citation, and sure enough, that's not what it says at all. It says there have been 1,000 recorded attacks on hospitals and healthcare institutions in Ukraine, and that goes anywhere from a verbal threat against the hospital to outright attack. And there literally zero hospitals have been destroyed in Ukraine. But so I told the author. I told the lead author, and he's a Ukrainian guy, and he said, "Well, like let's just keep it this way because it's more. It makes people think it's a bigger like it'll impact people more." And I was like, "Wow, okay." I mean, but when the editors check the sources, because I assumed they did that, they're going to see that this is completely ludicrous and this is a completely ridiculous exaggeration. It's not even remotely plausible that you could claim that that's what the World Health Organization was saying in that report. Didn't matter. They published it as it is, and that's actually how it's written in the journal now, and will be forever most likely. So this level of checking your citations and all this is completely ridiculous, and it's again very clear that it has nothing to. This is not how I cannot imagine this is how the New England Journal of Medicine normally operates. Certainly not in its opinion perspective or its opinion side. But the other thing that or the other little publishing experience I wanted to tell you about was in a journal called Dialogues in Health, much smaller journal. I think it's British. I think it might be open source. It's not something that people actually read. But the me and a few other people, and I was not at all the lead person on this project. We published something that just got. I think they did. I think they put out the preprint yesterday or the day before, and it'll come out, whenever the next edition of the journal actually is. And that was a very simple review of basically, not exactly, but basically of things that Israel is doing in Gaza that increase the risk of infectious disease outbreaks, and which is basically everything. And the so we now this journal has published about Gaza before, so we're like, this is fine. So it'll definitely get in here. And but what happened is that this publication was held up for months and months and months by this one reviewer who kept insisting on just completely ridiculous. He just kept making these completely ridiculous claims. And the editors of these journals, it's interesting, I didn't know this until recently. The editors of these journals are actually not paid for their work. So they're still working a full-time clinical schedule for the most part. And they're basically doing this as volunteers, even though the journal itself is a money-making corporation. And when you're doing this, and it's a very much a part-time thing, you can't possibly read every submission. These are long papers, they're detailed, they often make a complex argument. Um, there's a lot of literature that nobody could possibly be familiar with all of it, that's being referenced. So these are tough. It would require a lot of a doctor's time, to become familiar with every paper that's submitted. So they really do rely on the reviewers. And the reviewer, there were three reviewers. Two of them said this is an excellent paper. There's no corrections or changes. They made some suggestions about wording and stuff like that, but no actual corrections or edits or changes or major changes. And this one reviewer just kept holding it up by saying, no, this paper is unprofessional, it's political, it's this, it's that. And finally, we just had to tell the editor, we had to like just kind of demand and say, look, please read this for yourself. You have two reviewers that are saying it's great and one who's saying it's the worst thing he's ever read. You have to be a tiebreaker. We've made every attempt to accommodate this person's reviews and suggestions. We've made multiple changes to the paper in the vein that they requested, but it's still just not enough, and they just keep copying and pasting the same review over and over again. So we don't really we feel like we need to ignore this at this point. And interestingly enough, the editor actually agreed, but it wasn't until we actually went to them directly when we were, kind of working with their handler, who I assume was the secretary of that in the office. They really didn't know how to respond. But when we said, look, we need to talk to the editor directly, finally, with one email, it was actually cleared up. So the point is, these journals, I think, are just a little bit more pliable than we would have thought, like they're just not, they don't have super strict criteria for anything. They're not, they're kind of run by the seat of their pants, is what I'm trying to say. They're so persistence and um, persistence and I guess hard-headedness can be an asset when you're dealing with them. And you know the New this Dialogues in Health piece no one's ever going to read, but the New England Journal of Medicine piece, you know, it did go around, and even though it's true, it doesn't say that Israel's committing genocide in Gaza, which should be the foundational understanding of everything that's going on, or it's kind of the simplest way to summarize what's happening. And it should be the departure point for almost any discussion about what's happening. Even though it refused to let us say that, I think it still had an impact, and it definitely, I'll tell you, it made a lot of. I never used the term Zionist, but I know people do, so I'll just say it. I know it made a lot of people who would call themselves Zionists very, very angry that the New England Journal published this. They made a lot of threats against the journal. And even though somebody claimed to have found an error in it, which is just it's not an error, it's completely ludicrous. But even though somebody claimed to have found an error in it, the journal when they asked us, they said, "Is this an error?" I just explained it, and they said, "Oh, okay, no, that's they're not being honest." And so it's hopefully it's a step in the right direction, but again, this is obviously not some. Like Nadal said, it's going to require us to keep pushing everything that's going on in Gaza and in Palestine in general, and honestly in the whole world in general, requires us to keep pushing our own colleagues, our own institutions to be better, more accountable, and more serious, just more serious and more honest than they have been. Um, But yeah, I don't know if anybody has read the piece. I'm curious if what you thought of it. But the New England Journal piece, I know nobody's read the Dialogues and Health piece. Um, but yeah, I'm curious about uh or if other people are working on things that they want to talk about it, whatever uh whatever you think.
Thank you, Feroz, so much. So we really appreciate you coming and talking about this. This is super insightful, and you put in words what we already know about the academic journals and how they are an arm of genocide when it comes to Gaza and an arm of propaganda when it comes to Ukraine. And just putting juxtapositioning these two examples is extremely important and very enlightening and frankly damning. I appreciate your perspective in the New England Journal of Medicine. I know all the authors. The three of them are, two of them are in Boston, one of them is in Connecticut, and I know Akiva personally. And it is, as much as I appreciate their work, it is also very insulting that the Palestinians who are suffering this genocide are not in the authorship.
Hmm.
And at the same time, I do appreciate that most of the work in the paper is your own experience because you're the one who went there and you're the one who actually had the connection. So thank you. And what is more important, thank you for this, for what you're saying right now. This is something that should be spread. And this is something, it's first of all, it's very brave that you actually revealed all this. And it is very important that we actually bring this up in every academic meeting, in every journal, whenever there is a publication that is being refused. Now, how do we counteract this? We counteract this by pushing as much as possible with these journals that we have, but we also need our own academic papers and our own publications and our own journals. And that's what we should be working on as anti-genocide medical community. Because frankly, none of these people who made the decisions to delay this paper, remove the word genocide from it, remove the word genocide from the genocide scholars who actually have an opinion about it, they are, I'm sorry, but each one of them who did this is an arm of genocide.
Yeah.
So it is
Yeah.
extremely insulting that this is happening. And it is also every word that you have said since you came to this webinar is an example of anti-Palestinian racism. Every
Yeah.
word.
Yeah.
It's like, the Palestinians do not deserve to write their own stories.
Right.
If they write their own stories, they will not published. If they get published, they get questioned, and their scholarship is questioned, and they are deemed political or propagandist or Hamas terror
Yeah.
supporters.
And the interesting thing, and sorry, not to cut you off, but just to add to what you're saying, the interesting thing is not only were they willing to silence the voices of Palestinians, they were even willing to silence the voices of Israelis. Like again, Physicians for Human Rights Israel is an Israeli, it's an Israeli group. Three of the authors on this paper are Israeli citizens. It's
Oh, yeah.
completely ridiculous, you know.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
and they still rejected it the first time. They again, like I said, like we the Naftali. The only reason this was published is because Naftali is persistent and actually has that Israeli arrogance that we all know pretty well.
They're
The
pushy. They're pushy. They know how to be pushy.
yes, and
Whether it's
that was a
Akiva
good
or Naftali, both of
yeah
them are, I know them. They're
yeah
pushy and they keep
yeah
keep working. Uh,
yeah
the the other thing is, the Palestinian exceptionalism is way on display here,
yeah
and this is what we are fighting against. And my last point is that media and academic journals and academia has been an arm of genocide. If the media was straightforward in reporting and reported all the dead Palestinian children and reported all the schools and the universities that have been bombed repeatedly, and they insisted on the truth, this genocide would not have happened.
Yeah.
it's 100% correct. The I'll just tell you a story about that. When I wrote it was kind of like an investigative piece for the New York Times about a year ago now, um, about the shooting of, it was about a lot of stuff. It was basically about what American healthcare workers had seen in Gaza. So trying to, that this way they couldn't claim it's bias, right? Because we're not talking to Palestinians in Palestine. A lot of the Americans were Palestinians, but the New York Times prides itself on its anti-racism and all this stuff. So they at that point they can't say, well, they're still Palestinians. They're Americans. So it's kind of a way of using that against them. But the so it was a study of what 65 American healthcare workers saw while volunteering in Gaza. Now that the paper it caused a big stir at the time, this because the lead thing, like the biggest thing that we reported was that something like, I don't remember the exact numbers, but something like 85% of healthcare workers in who have gone over have regularly seen small children shot in the head or the chest, right? So this became a big deal, but it went away after that, right? And it's not like every
Not a big deal
time.
anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Now everybody knows it's still going on. It's still like every time I'm on the news, every time on the BBC, whatever, and not just me, every American healthcare worker or British or everybody who is, we all mention the same thing again. But it's not like it was ever incorporated into like the context that media organizations give, right? It wasn't in like it's not like they say by the like the war started after October 7th, and by the way, Israel shoots children in the head all the time. That's not the context that's provided, right? But it's an interesting thing because I had gone again. I went to Gaza after I'd been in Ukraine 3 times already, and I remember thinking when I was writing this piece, or actually, I remember thinking after I published the piece, that, okay, we published one large investigation that, sure, historians will look at it and like, people who dedicate a substantial part of their lives to understanding what's going on with the Israel-Palestine conflict will know we'll read this and know about it and fine. But the day-to-day reader, the day-to-day voter, is maybe they read it, but then they're going to forget because it's just one news article, right? Or one opinion article. And I remember thinking to myself, what would have happened if, because I think it was 56 people that answered yes to that question. What would have happened if for a year, 56 American doctors came back from Ukraine and said, I regularly saw that Russian forces were shooting small children in the head and the chest? Well, it wouldn't be one news piece, right? It would be a series of news pieces,
Non-stop. Yeah.
probably one a week, and each one would be the front page of the New York Times, and each one would build on the last. Each one would say, excuse me, each one would say, as the New York Times has already reported, this, and this doctor also saw the same thing. And then the Washington Post would get in it, the Wall Street Journal would get, everybody would be discussing this. Whereas when we're the ones doing the killing, we and the Israelis, obviously, when we're the ones that are responsible, then yeah, they'll tell the truth, but they'll say it once, and then everybody will go on with their lives, and it's never even referenced again. So this framing and the choice of emphasis is so important, and it's exactly like you're saying. The American people, even despite the media being completely worthless in this, at least the American media, I don't know about European media, seems to be at least somewhat better. But despite that, the large majority of Americans are already opposed to arms sales to Israel. Um, so you can see why they're so desperate to keep this propaganda going, like with Larry Ellison buying CBS News and installing Barry Weiss of all people as the head of it. All these completely ridiculous media consolidations coming under the control of billionaires. But yeah, no, exactly like you're saying, the one of the main reasons that this could happen is because it was done perfectly out in the open, but without telling Americans what was actually happening. Yes, it was reported here or it was reported there, but it wasn't the story. The story was always the hostages, and October 7th. Always, right? Both of which are important, obviously, but like you can't possibly you can't expect people to understand what's going on if you don't tell them what's actually being done to Gaza. And actually, like exactly like you said at the beginning, or actually, I think maybe Nadal, you said it at the beginning of the webinar, the Israelis are resuming their war not on Hamas. It's not a war on Hamas. It never has been. The Israelis are going out of their way to avoid fighting Hamas because they don't want to. They don't want to get killed doing that in the process. The Israelis are just destroying Gaza. That's it. There's nothing complicated about this. You can look at Gaza and figure out what's going on, let alone actually look at a satellite picture of Gaza. Anybody can figure out what happened. So yeah, so no, it's the propaganda is the number one thing that has allowed this to continue. I completely agree, and not just from the media, but also like you're saying, from medical organizations and medical journals that really, um, the New England Journal has a really horrible history related to the Holocaust. It's kind of an interesting thing, and it was called out. Maybe somebody else remembers the year better, but I think it was 2016, 2017,
Yeah.
2018, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And they finally agreed to publish some pieces pointing out that even though everyone knew the Nazi Holocaust was being done when it was being done, it was hardly some secret. But it was done behind, kind of in at least the mechanized part of it was done behind walls. But on the Eastern Front, they were just shooting people. It wasn't hidden in any way. The um the journal finally published a mea culpa,
Mhm.
80 years later, saying, oh, and then it is making these grand statements about, oh, we have to make sure that in the future we're always like blah, 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 blah. And then this comes along. Exact same thing. Yeah, it's probably that link right there. Thank you. Yeah, it's shocking how it shows how deeply unprincipled these institutions are. And but at the same time, an institution is only going to be as principled as the people running it. I think we all know that. Um, so yeah, I don't know where all that
Yeah,
leads us,
I
but
think they have a bad record on slavery too. The same thing. I mean, they published an apology a century later. And as you said, and I've been saying this for a while, Hamas and the hostages have never been the goal. They have always been the excuse. Actually, if Hamas just vanishes now completely and every last hostage returns, Benjamin Netanyahu and Ben Gvir might get a heart attack because, oh, what else can we use to justify, the complete annihilation of the Palestinian people? So they have always been the excuse. That's why Israel is not allowing heavy machinery to go in Gaza to dig and get the remaining dead hostages, because that will take more excuses from him, and he doesn't want that. He would rather have at least something there so he can justify his genocide and his campaign of extermination. And I remember reading in the book of Samantha Power. Samantha Power used to be a good person at one time, and she was anti-genocide. And she wrote a book that the only reason that the genocide in Bosnia, Srebrenica, and in Rwanda were stopped is when the media, the mainstream media, went public about exposing all the crimes. Not when the administration knew. At that time, it was Bill Clinton who at that time was the president, and Bill Clinton and his um, foreign minister, I don't recall her name now, they knew from the beginning, from day one. They were told by the lower staffers at the State Department, there is a genocide in Bosnia. They were told there is a genocide in Rwanda. And they got orders from the higher ups, bury the story, cut it off, bury it, because they know that once they admit genocide, acknowledge genocide, they have a responsibility to intervene. That's why leaders, politicians, they are the last ones to admit it. Only after these crimes were published in the mainstream media and it started affecting the election polls for Clinton, he was forced to intervene. And again, as you said, the mainstream media continues to be silent. We are lucky to have the social media that is exposing more and more of the crimes, that more people are against the genocide, against the this campaign, but still not enough. If it was published the way it should be, as you said, Froze, and giving the adequate exposure and balanced and fair reporting, telling the truth in the mainstream media or in the medical journalism, this genocide would not have lasted 2 years. Don't forget that it's been two brutal, lethal years. We're not talking about a month in, 2 months in, 6 months. We're talking about 2 years, two administrations, almost 680,000 innocent lives. At least 20,000 children that we know of got mass murdered, mass slaughtered by the free world. Imagine that the free world, the countries of the free world of the human rights access is the one that is using their most lethal weapons to mass slaughter babies and children at mass scale. So
I
thank you, Feroz.
Yeah, Nidal, I think we have Dr. Mads Gilbert who
Yeah, I
joined
know.
us
Yeah.
from the
Thank you,
audience.
Feroz, for being
Yeah.
the most powerful voice to expose the Israeli crimes when you went there in Gaza, because your voice and your reporting at that time was one of the most powerful ones. And thank you for exposing now. The testimony that you just gave is the most damning testimony of the medical journalism and medical literature field that we heard so far. This is so important, and hopefully it will be a turning point to expose this as far and as wide as we can. And as Karama mentioned, we should not accept that these are the types of editors or journals or journalism in the medical field that represent our voice and our truth. And this should be a beginning of something new. And we have also your colleague who was as brave, as outspoken, and very powerful truth teller for decades. Dr. Mads Gilbert, thank you. You also have been on this front. You have this battle with the medical, publications and publishers. So please, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, your own experience, you're welcome to join us and share with us, Dr. Mads.
Thank you so much. Salam alaikum, dear colleagues. First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Frost and his three co-authors for this important paper. I published my first paper on Gaza in The Lancet in 2009, and I wrote it in Shifa Hospital during the attacks. At that time, Richard Horton was very eager and very pro-Palestinian, and it was called Inside Al-Shifa Hospital. Then I started to wonder why there was so little. What I'm going to say is just to complement what you have been saying, Dr. Froos, but it's much more systematic than we think. So I started to wonder why don't I find any references when I do searches in New England Journal of Medicine and JAMA, whereas I found a lot in British Medical Journal and in the Lancet. So I did a study, a very, very simple study that I'd like to share with you. What I did actually, and I did this in, it's 26 years of search I did in 2016. And 2016 was after the attack on Gaza in 2006, 9, 12, and 14. So there had been 4 pretty bad attacks. We had published some patient flow studies in the Lancet. And then I did a search using the search machine in the 4 top-rated medical journals in the world. New England Journal of Medicine, as you said, impact factor 51, Lancet, impact factor 39, JAMA, impact factor 29, and British Medical Journal, impact factor 17. And I searched 4 terms: Gaza, Palestine with asterisks, West Bank, and Israel with asterisks. And I used their search engines. And I searched from 1990 until 2016. Is it possible for me to share screen with you? No.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, you can
Yeah,
share
go
screen.
ahead.
I can share screen because
Yes,
then I
you can.
Okay, where do I do that on the? Where is the shares? Oh, there. Yes, yes,
The
yes.
green
Okay,
button.
good.
That green arrow.
Yes. Oh, here I go. Can you see it?
It's coming. Yes, yes, we see it.
So these are the 4 terms I used, and then so there you go. And these are the results basically. Palestine, and these are 26 years. 32 hits in JAMA, 17 in New England on the term Palestine. Altogether less than 50, and almost 700 in the Lancet and BMJ. Israel, not 50, but 840 in JAMA and New England in the US, and almost 3,000 in BMJ and Lancet. West Bank, 9, 0, mind you, 0 in New England Journal of Medicine, 26 years, and almost 300 in the British journals. Gaza, let me see. I can't see the number because the panel is up there.
15 for JAMA.
Yeah,
and then
wait,
3 for the New England. Yeah.
Yes. 15 for JAMA and whoops, 1 second, hang on. And 3 for New England and 487 for the combined in the British journals. So here are the same results. Can you see that? The next slide. Did you see it?
Mhm.
Is it the same
Yes.
slide?
No, it's a different slide.
Yeah, is it a slide in cane color? Do you see this slide, the ratio slide? Summed up numbers of hit for 4 key search words. You see that now?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So you see the ratio of Gaza when you compare the US journals with the UK journals is 1 to 33. So it's 33 times more likely that there was during these 26 years a mention of Gaza in Lancet and New England than in the in Lancet and BMJ compared to the 2 US-based journals. Palestine, 1 to 14, West Bank term, 1 to 33, same as Gaza term, and Israel, 1 to 4. So Israel is well covered, whereas Gaza, Palestine, West Bank is completely omitted from the archives in these 2 very important journals in the US. Obviously controlled by Zionists who don't want to share any scientific information about the situation in Gaza and the West Bank over 26 years. And for those of us who have been having experience with publishing there, I think this doesn't come as a surprise. And as Richard Horton said, research is not only a way of obtaining clear answers to clear questions, it's also a basis for value-based advocacy and pursuing social justice and peace. I think this tiny study, and I put the two references, it's published in the Lancet actually as an abstract from the Lancet Palestine Health Alliance in 2017. But I think it's the mere numbers, the mere facts is that Palestine has been actively suppressed from scientific publications in the US over a very long time in order to obscure and to maintain the Zionist narrative on what is going on. And I think that's exactly what Feroz was talking about when he talked about the struggle to get this into the New England. We have written a longer piece because we were censored twice in the Lancet recently after a paper we wrote on COVID-19 and structural violence in Gaza. And this is a system. This is not by chance, and this is the war of the narrative. This is who is going to get access to the truth. And there are two types of truth tellers, professionals in Gaza, the journalists and the medical staff, the healthcare workers. And that's why they've killed 250, 270 journalists and more than 1,700 medical healthcare workers, because we are key witnesses. And I heard a number that you're 4 times more likely to be killed in Gaza if you're a Palestinian healthcare worker compared to a Palestinian civilian. So that was just a little support for the experience you had, Feroz. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Gilbert. Yeah, Palestine has been suppressed and erased. The erasure itself for the last 150 years is part of the genocide that has been going on since then. All of these, whether it's the medical literature or political narrative or the media, even in the cultural world, are all tools to enable and justify the genocide. Go ahead.
My point is that the raw numbers, we are concerned with numbers as scientists or evidence. And I think this little study shows that there has been
Yes.
an active obscuring and censorship in academic journals in the US, because the difference is highly significant, the difference between the publication patterns of these 4 terms in New England and JAMA versus BMJ and the Lancet. You could consider all 4 pretty colonial, but that difference itself says a lot to me about the control that the Zionists have over the academic bodies in the US. And that is betrayal of the truth, simply. And I think we need to pursue that.
Yeah, since you're both here, is there a way we can start a campaign on this with the evidence that you have, the study that you have, and the evidence that Dr. Feroza have? We really need to start a campaign, specific campaign for this, and expose these crimes on a massive scale to all the medical community. I mean, we have the numbers, we have the evidence, we have, the struggle that our colleagues went through, Dr. Feroza, actual first-hand testimony. We cannot continue to be silent on this. So, I mean, for everyone, there's a call for everyone to brainstorm an idea that we can really launch a whole new campaign about this, to not just keep it as a private information or just for our inner group of people and supporters. We need to expose this on a wider scale for the general public and the general medical community. So we'll be happy to be part of this and start this and support it in any way we can.
Nidal, I just want to say also, I also blame our colleagues who are very willing to sideline the voices of Palestinians and elevate the Zionist voices and elevate the Zionist truth, even when they know that this is not right, and even when they know that this is not correct. We have lack of bravery, we have lack of leadership, and we have lack of honesty amongst our own colleagues who are by every standard excellent colleagues, and they know what is happening, and they still choose to practice the Palestinian exception, and they still choose to marginalize the voices of the people who are undergoing a genocide and elevate the voices of those who are actually cheering on the genocidal regimes. So this is a call for all of us. Call them out. Do not just be, because we also tend to respect each other in the medical field, and we do not want to rock the boat, or we do not want to be confrontational. But when genocide is the crime of crimes. This is not the time or the place or the moment for anyone to be like, well, I just want to be safe and I don't want to talk about this. This is the time to talk about it. And we are seeing right now, I think what was what made the ceasefire happen was public pressure. Public pressure eased after the ceasefire, and now it's over again. So this is, we cannot let go. We have to be consistent and we have to be loud. Dr. Suyang, you want to say something?
I tell you what, over the years, of course, I've got papers withdrawn after being published and so on. And Matt and I know about our open letter to Gaza for the people of Gaza that really took a lot to keep it published. But the main thing is this: in a time of crisis like that, our medical profession colleagues do everything they can to split hair about figures and so on and so forth. One of my young colleagues who have done a wonderful meticulous paper, which was withdrawn, and we got it published somewhere else, and then have the anti-terrorism police sent to her and say, you're radicalizing people. Okay, we'll take your children into care. That kind of thing. Yeah. So it's a lot of dirty tactics all along. My position now, after years and years, I've got 43 years of this nonsense, World Medicine closed down because they published an article I wrote. So I think, right now, I actually don't even quote the medical literature. I just go straight to United Nations, OUCHA, which published a weekly kind of report on how many people killed and so on and so forth. And then I analyze it myself and then put in all my talks and the popular press and all the things I do. Because that is more contemporaneous. We don't have to wait for 3 months and 6 months of fighting. And of course, if you get published, then it's very good. It's a solid paper which can be quoted for many, many years to come. But right now we're living in a time of crisis. And you see what I mean? Either, certain facts and figures are wonderful, like, I think Maynard is going to come up with a paper to say that the risk of being killed if you're a health worker in Gaza is 3 times that of a Palestinian. It's actually a paper that's being refused and rewritten and rewritten. We know the figures 6 months ago, but it's still not medical literature. But among all of us who actually speak in public, Matt says 4 times. Actually, I think the figure was 3 times. Okay, it's actually from the data which Ghassan and Nick Maynard actually works out, but cannot get published. So I think, if the figures produced by WHO and OUCHA are being questioned that they're Hamas source, then I think we are in a bad place to start with. So right now, I think I'm not saying that we do not fight among the medical institution. I think we should, like the BMJ, and BMJ is very good now because they've got a very good editor. And just published the paper on the body atlas and so on and so forth. You see, 6 months ago, it's not going to happen. They've changed editors. And I think Lancet, Richard Horton has been very, very sympathetic. And somewhere along after the open letter to Gaza, he has been hammered up so badly that he's actually got to kind of calm down and not be so sympathetic. But we understand, that's okay. But I think for our group, we have to fight the battle of the medical publications, but I think more important than that, we have to use the WHO and the United Nations figures and not let any pushback that they're Hamas figures, because they're not. If the Ministry of Health of Gaza cannot do figures, who else would? You tell me who would? After every blooming interview on the popular press, you know, my volunteers, they come back, they all speak, and they say, oh, Dr. blah, 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 quoted how many dead, according to the Hamas MOH. Okay, so big deal. You see, so I think we have to be very clear, you see, all of us, if the MOH of Gaza, incidentally, the MOH Gaza is also the MOH of Palestine. It happens to be the Gaza branch, right? So that itself is a big smear. So I think we, in our minds, should be confident of what evidence we have already. And in fact, the death toll is always understated because it's always say, 60, now it's 67 going 68,000 with people under the rubble. I don't know what else, our medical publications need. Even the BBC is quoting the figures now. I think New England Medical Journal is a battle we need to fight. But right now, when we are so thin on the ground, I congratulate Dr. Feroz for getting his paper there, but they removed the word genocide. Okay, fine. All right. But how much effort it takes, you see. But I know of him not through his paper, right? I know of him because of him speaking. Sometimes I'm asked to speak, I don't speak. I gave up my time to speaking and play his recorded speech instead to my audience. And that's more powerful. I think we're in a campaign mode. You see, it's broken down again. And I'm very, very agitated because you see, our human resource is very limited. So it's how we deal with it. And the figures we have are good figures because these are the people from the ground. They're from our doctors. And why can't we quote Palestinian figures? Right. How come? I think we should say that the Palestinians tell us that this is this. It is verified by WHO and UN.
One good thing in the New England Journal paper is that one of the things we call on the medical literature to do is actually to listen to Palestinians, which I know again is weird in a paper where there is only one Palestinian and she's an Israeli citizen. But but nevertheless, that's one of the good things. Can I just connect two things that you guys were saying? And you guys see that Anthony Aguilar is on the call, so
Yes.
his military service made me think of this. Someone mentioned that it's the popular pressure that brought about the ceasefire. I'm not sure that's actually true. I think what brought about the ceasefire is that the Arab dictatorships took Trump aside at the UN and they said, look, the Israelis just bombed Qatar. Are you out of your goddamn mind? What are you doing? It actually hasn't mattered that the large majority of the population, thanks largely in part to Lieutenant Colonel Aguilar, actually, and the work that you guys are all doing. A large part of the population meaning like a significant majority, has wanted arms sales to Israel stopped for a long time now. That didn't matter at all. All of a sudden, you upset the wrong mafia family, and that's what matters, you know. So I think it tells us something about our own society. Like Nadal, I think at the beginning you said like, who would have thought the West and the human rights world would be doing these things? But it's very unfortunate. I was born in the United States. I grew up here. The Western canon that's the tradition I know, and I think it's very impressive. I think there's a lot there. But the fact of the matter is, our societies are not terribly democratic ones, and that's true at the federal level. It's true at the state level. It's true at the local level, and it's true in our own medical institutions as well. Like. It's true of the New England Journal of Medicine. It's true of the American College of Surgeons, where we've been like I'll tell you at the ACS we've been trying to get the ACS simply to make a public statement on the killing of healthcare workers in general. But because everybody knows it's a reference to Gaza, they won't do it. But we've literally got a letter with hundreds of fellows of the American College of Surgeons that have signed on to it. And so, we're continuing to try and work. I mean, institutions do work slowly, so that's one part of it. But normally it doesn't take a year to get something, a simple, 3 or 4 paragraph statement published. So I think one of the problems one of the facts of our own society is that that this genocidal lunacy has been exposing is just the simple fact that our stated values of democracy, of inclusiveness, et cetera, are not our real values. The people here, yeah, of course, each one of us, but the people who actually rule the country don't think this way. And unless this become, and I'm talking about the US specifically, but unless the US actually becomes a democratic country, these things are going to continue happening. Like Nadal, you mentioned the genocide in Rwanda. Like you said, Samantha Power used to have a moral sense. And she pointed out that everybody knew what was going on. I mean, if you think back to that time, I mean, I was a kid. It was 1996, right? So I was 14. I remember knowing it was going on. It was in the media. It was all over. I remember Time Magazine had published an open letter from a man who somehow he was in a church that was then everybody in the church was burned alive the next day. But the letter, it was the front page of Time Magazine. It said, "We wish to inform you that me and my family will be killed tomorrow." It was perfectly open. It was perfectly out in the open. Everybody knew what was going on. And I'll just tell you the story. I've had several meetings with higher level, not cabinet level, but just below cabinet level U.S. government officials in the Biden administration, not in Trump. But and that started after the second letter we sent to Biden and after the New York Times article that I wrote. And when we were meeting with these people, we would regularly ask them, is the issue that Biden, Blinken, McGurk, Austin, these high level decision makers, is the issue that they don't know what the Israelis are doing with our weapons? Or is that they know and they've decided they don't, it's just politically worth it. They're not going to stop it for whatever political reason. And all of them, not a single person hesitated. They said, no, it's definitely, everybody knows what's going on. That's not, no one's confused about that. And Biden himself didn't know too much of what was going on, but the people who were actually making decisions, they were well aware of what was happening. They were well aware that the Israelis, I know multiple people have brought up the widespread shooting of children to Blinken, McGurk, and Austin specifically. The Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, and Brett McGurk, I think, is a special advisor in some capacity. I don't know, but he's basically the guy that's run Middle East policy under the last several administrations. And they all just, no one said, oh no, that's a Hamas doctor, you can't listen to him. They all just said, no, yeah, they're probably doing that. Oh well, when you step on ants, you don't really care. That's the problem, is that when the US's imperial ventures, which this is clearly one of them, it just doesn't, the people that are in your way, they're just inconsequential. And that's the reason is because the people of the United States don't feel this way. The people of the United States are decent, just like everybody else. But the people of the US are not in control of our own country. And that's fundamentally the problem, is we have an incredibly, shockingly powerful country that is just completely under the control of a bunch of narcissistic lunatics. And I'm not just talking about Trump, even the people before.
Yeah.
I have a
Oh,
honestly,
wait, Nita, I'm sorry. I just want to ask everybody. So, in terms of priority, what should we be doing? I want instruction.
Can I offer an answer to that, Sui?
Yes.
And allow me to disagree with you, because I think we need to continue to walk on 2 feet.
Of course, I'm not saying that you don't, but I get tired. Okay.
Sure,
Sorry.
I understand that, but I think it's vitally important to continue with what I termed evidence-based solidarity in 2017 when I presented this paper. I suggested the term evidence-based solidarity. So the science that we do and the publication in renowned medical peer-reviewed journals is our way to get more people knowledgeable about what is going on. We cannot continue just to speak to the choir, because we agree. And we may damn these journals and these editors, but we need to continue to hammer. And that's why this paper is so important by Dr. Farouz, because it shows us that it is indeed the drips that hollow the stone. And evidence-based solidarity means to work hard as scientists and as clinicians. Not everyone can go to Gaza, but the fact that we have, for example, the 2 key papers from the Lancet, The one in January showing that the numbers in the OCHA reports, which I, by the way, get in my inbox every week. I use it in all my lectures, the updated one, of course I do. But they showed that these numbers are 41% underestimated. You remember that paper in January?
Yes, I do.
Critically important. The second paper, which is almost never mentioned, was also published in The Lancet in January, showing that life expectancy in Gaza has been reduced by 35 years in the first 12 months.
That is a very important paper.
Let me finish, please.
Okay.
35 years. It's cutting life expectancy in half. And that's the silent genocide. A child born in Gaza today, and there are 120 deliveries per 24 hour, can expect to live for 35 years. They've already stolen half of their lives. So these numbers, being scientific numbers, are critically important when we are going to expand on the medical community that do say stop the genocide, stop colonialism, and demand from our leaders, political leaders, that this is the scientific proof of what you are actually subscribing to. So I think we have a very, very important duty to be patient and to continue to do what Farouz and Shasmin and Akiva and Naftali managed to do now, namely to work hard to get it published in exactly these journals, which have been completely controlled by Zionist forces. And we need to be the ones who fight for the other narrative. And that's our duty as scientists and medical doctors, I think.
Yes.
Thank you.
I agree, Dr. Mats. I just want to step in, please. I want to step in. I agree that we need to fight on every front. Each one of us have their bandwidth, their strength, their weaknesses. Each one of us likes to fight in a way that they feel like they are better at doing this. We are fighting an enemy that is very organized, that has been very organized for over decades or centuries. We are fighting a very powerful enemy that is profiting from this. We are fighting politicians who are saying genocide is good for business. It's just astounding. That's why we all need to fight on every front we can. If you can fight in the medical literature, if this is your strength, please do it. If you can fight in the streets with protest, demonstration, please do it. If you want to do activism, if you want to do political, advocacy, writing letters, writing papers, donating, helping the victims, there is a place for all of us, and we should keep doubling down, and we should not cede any territory to them. We should not cede any space to them, not even mentally. As our great Yara Shehi mentioned, we should not cede any space. I know it's hard, I know it's tough, I know it's an uphill battle, but the power of the people is more powerful than the people in power. We just need to keep fighting, and it always feel impossible until it is achieved. But please hold on your thoughts. I want all of you to keep thinking about this, brainstorming this. We're coming back to this, but unfortunately, we have very sad news to share with one of our colleagues, Dr. Mariam Kamal. She's a veterinarian here in the United States. The news of the murder of her colleague and the beloved veterinarian from Gaza. Mariam, are you there? He went to check on his house a few days ago in Jabalia camp. He's a very beloved doctor in Gaza. His name was very well known. And for the crime of going to check back on his house, he was murdered. He was missing for about a week. And it seems Dr. Kamal just received the bad news today that he was found dead. Sorry for your loss, Mariam. Thank you for being with us. I know it's tough. I know it's hard for you to share this. We are all there for you. I mean, we all, in the same fight. We all care about every life in Gaza, every child, every doctor, every man, every woman. And we're all heartbroken today for this news and heartbroken for, again, this destruction of the momentary hope of a ceasefire that we had for the last few days. So, Mariam, please share with us what do you have to say about the doctor, and we're all here ears for you. Thank you.
For saying that. Thank you guys so much for bringing me on, and thank you for, of course, before we had this news today, you had generously offered me to come on today to share any updates and calls to action regarding his disappearance. So thank you so much for that. I think that I'm different from some of you in that I have not yet suffered the loss of a colleague to this until today. So please forgive me for maybe not being as articulate or organized as I usually try to be. Usually I try to organize things in a specific way when I speak, but I have, a few points that I think are important to cover, and I do just want to apologize because it might not be like that organized, so it might be a little bit more conversational. But I was thinking first I can share some details from his murder that we have permission to share, and also some details of his work. And then some calls to action. So first, in terms of the details of his murder, Nadal, you're correct that he basically what happened is on Friday, when the quote unquote ceasefire was supposed to take place, he and his family looked at the map of what Israel had published in terms of areas that were safe to go to. And his home in Jabalia was supposedly in the safe zone. They had a lot of things there still because they had been displaced over 14 times now. And with a wife and two little kids, his kids are 2 and 3 years old. They had actually been displaced a few times, and then they had gone back to their home. And then when things became extremely dangerous in that area, again, they had to flee with very short notice. So they still had a lot of things in their home, which is why he wanted to go back. And he really just wanted to go back home. I mean, there are a couple other people, veterinary students who I'm speaking with who are asking for my help to evacuate, which we're trying to do, the best we can with people, for example, who've obtained scholarships or trying to obtain other, like asylum and things like that. But Muat never asked me for anything, never once asked me for can you share the fundraiser? Can you donate? Can you do this? Everything I would ask him, I'd be like, what can we do for you? So a few weeks ago, it dawned on me, I was like, if he wants to evacuate, he's never going to ask me. I should ask him. So I asked him, do you want to evacuate? And his answer was, if I get an opportunity to evacuate, I will consider it carefully at that time. Which means, no, I don't want to evacuate. I just want to go home. And that's why he went home. He would send me pictures of their home and, what they had set up for the kids, and just be like, our home, it was just the most beautiful thing. And just this war destroyed everything. So what happened was he went and with a couple other people, family members, and what his wife told me was that those, his brother and uncle were able to come back. They were ambushed by the Israeli army. And the contact I spoke with at Sulala this morning was saying, now, of course, everyone knows that these areas are not safe to go to. It's a week later. People have been going, and so many people have been getting killed. They have literally turned these what she said to me is it was a trick. They have turned these quote unquote areas that were supposed to be safe zones into killing fields, is what she said. She literally said the word killing fields. Apparently, there are some reports that there may have been warning shots, but we don't even have any evidence of that. So yeah, she said it is confirmed that he was shot dead by the army. And it's just, I just feel like his life and his death teach us so much. And even in death, he's exposing this is, I mean, as we've seen, so many people have exposed this past week with how many times, I know the last time I checked it, it was, I think, 47 or 50 times Israel has already broken the ceasefire in the past week. But, and I don't know if you guys said the total number of martyrs from the past week, if you quoted that earlier in the webinar, but I mean, I believe it's greater than 30 now, and it's obviously way greater than that because we don't even know. Like, there's people who are missing who we don't know. We're not counting them. So that is really just, I mean, I think people know that now, but that's really important information that I just would unfortunately encourage anyone on the ground not to trust any of these maps. Or anything that is published. And I'm not trying to place, of course, any blame on him or his family at all. I just don't want, I mean, I think that like the fact that he was one of the first people to go and he got killed can hopefully be something that like helps teach other people how to stay safe is all I'm saying. And I know we all know there's no safe place. There's really no way to stay safe. But that would just be one thing. In terms of details of his work, he was really such a champion for people and animals both. So some people here, I think, are familiar with how I speak about One Health. One Health being that human health, animal health, environmental health are all connected. And he was truly an embodiment of that. So he actually had a lot of different roles within Met. He was the most prominent veterinarian in the Gaza Strip. And he had taken on a lot of different roles during his short course as a veterinarian. I mean, he just turned 30 this past July. But he had worked a lot in public health, in farm animal health, and then also in companion animal health, which is pets. But he had worked for the Ministry of Agriculture. He had a top position with the Animal Welfare Association. He worked for Sulala Animal Rescue, which is the only animal rescue in the Gaza Strip. And Sulala has been providing free care for all the animals that comes there. And that includes the donkeys, the horses that have been providing that essential transport for patients and aid teams, journalists, essential supplies, displaced people. All of that was provided for free. He also had his own private clinic in Jabalia that was destroyed. And he was doing house calls as well for people who had their pets with them when they were displaced. I mean, I've even seen pictures of him examining pets like literally in rubble. So so he had these roles where I think some of you know because you've heard me talk about it, but a lot of people don't know that a lot of people see veterinarians as like, oh, they take care of kittens and puppies. That's just like a fun, cute job to have. But actually, we work really hard to safeguard human health. A lot of veterinary medicine is about safeguarding human health, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional. But he really covered all those bases because in his work with farm animals, he was helping ensure food safety and food security. Because when you have a healthy populations of farm animals, you can feed a population. And Israel had very specifically, he wanted people to know this, decimated the farm animal populations in Gaza. So even before this article came out in August from Euromed Human Rights Monitor, he had already told me this. He had already told me, so I already knew. But there's an article, if you Google, sorry, don't use Google, but if you search online for Euromed Human Rights Monitor, 97% farm animals, it'll come right up that Israel has killed over 97% of the farm animals in Gaza, and that amounts to I believe like about 10,000 goats, 14,000 or 15,000 cows, 19,000 donkeys, tens of thousands of birds, I think 58,000 sheep. These are all animals that were helping to provide food security and economic security for Gaza. And so and those animals some of them have been directly killed, directly targeted, and some of them have died due to genocidal conditions. And some of them have even been stolen and looted and taken back into Israel. And some of those donkeys that have been stolen have even been airlifted to places like France, while people are left behind to starve. They're literally airlifting donkeys to France. So this is really important to know. He wanted people to know there were no farm animals left. He had specifically told me that after the war, he called it war, but we know that, of course, a lot of the Palestinians are still calling it a war. But he would say like that they did eventually slaughter some of the dairy cows for meat, but there was nothing left. Like there was no dairy, there was no meat, there were no poultry, there were no laying hens. There was nothing. And a big part of veterinary medicine is ensuring food security and food safety. So that was a big thing that he did. Also helping to prevent the spread of zoonotic diseases. So for those who are not medical professionals attending, zoonotic disease is a disease that's transmissible between human and animals. And he was concerned about this. He was concerned about this. He was talking to me about, for example, rabies disease, which is a viral disease that is fatal. So what he was telling me was we are concerned because we have not had vaccines. We have not had vaccines for these animals. And these populations have taken to the streets. Obviously, when you have a population that has been displaced and crushed into a small area, and then there's stray animals everywhere and nobody's vaccinated. Not to mention there's limited resources. So there's going to be animals that are like, just in the streets, diseased animals just in the streets and commingling with people. There's sewage, there's everything. But yeah, one of the things he had told me about is we are concerned we don't have rabies vaccines, and the human hospitals are not stocked with the prophylactic treatment for rabies. So if rabid animals bite people, the people will die too because they don't have the treat. They can't go to the hospital and get the prophylactic that you're supposed to get if you're bitten by an animal that's suspected to have rabies. He was concerned about that. And then just safeguarding the human-animal bond too. In veterinary medicine, we call that the human-animal bond, where I'm sure you guys have seen videos of Palestinians just carrying their animals from one displacement to the next. Because, and the reason those of you who have pets can pay tribute to this, that's because there's a sense of safety and security that an animal can give you, a sense of home, comfort, love. And when you provide for that animal too, that gives you also a sense of like control. You're like, I can feed my pet. I can care for my pet. I take better care of my cats than I do for myself. My cat probably has like better medical treatment than I do because I ignore things for myself that I would never ignore for my cat. And you just feel like a sense of accomplishment when your animal is well cared for. And that's what he was still providing for his community. He had lost over 30 pounds because of the illegal blockade that Israel imposed on Gaza. And he was still going to work. He was still, again, when it comes to the human animal bond, I saw him do CPR on a dog a few weeks ago or a month ago. And this video was so tremendous for me because I want to talk about too, I'll move to this in a second, the complicity of our veterinary medical institutions, as you guys were just talking about. But the fact that our medical institutions cannot even stand up for our colleagues in Palestine. And he was there. This dog had a gunshot wound. It was bleeding out and it was clearly in pain. He had nothing. He had nothing to really treat it with, but he still refused not to let it go without doing chest compressions, without trying to give breaths. And I want to tell you, again, for people who are not veterinarians in the audience, which I'm assuming is most of you, that when it comes to CPR and veterinary medicine, it is very unsuccessful. So there are studies where if you have a fully equipped university, veterinary school, state-of-the-art facility, and you do CPR on an animal that doesn't have a gunshot wound, there is about maybe like a 9 to 16% chance that animal will leave the hospital. And that those animals will need, it's not just chest compressions and drugs. It's like you need monitoring after you have successfully resuscitated. There's the chest compressions, there's drug injections, there's the breaths, we intubate them, we have rebreathing bags we set up. He didn't have any of that. And he still, it was basically a 0% chance that what he was going to do was going to work for that pet owner. And he still refused not to do it. I talked about the donkeys and the horses and the cats and the dogs. I kind of can't read my own handwriting. Sorry about that. But he also I'll also say before I move to the AVMA, he wanted to set up international veterinary medical missions. This was something that I had asked him, like, would it help you? Because I had wanted to go on the Samud flotilla. I had applied to go. I didn't get accepted, but I had wanted to go with rabies vaccines on the flotilla. When I didn't get accepted, actually, Dr. Muhammad Kaziz, who's from DAG, Colorado, had told me, you know, Mariam, maybe it's good you didn't get accepted because you would get blacklisted for medical missions. So I explained there is no such thing as a medical mission for veterinarians to go to Gaza. And actually, when I thought about it, I messaged Muad because I was like, well, he's never going to ask me. So I asked him, like, would you want this? And he said, yes, we would want this. We need international teams of veterinarians to come help us set up field hospitals. We need supplies, we need equipment, we need vaccines. I can tell you everything we need. So this is something that I was working on, that we were working on together to try to figure out. Unfortunately, there's so many steps that I started to uncover. Like every time I tried to get to another step, I would uncover another step. Like you have to get approved by the UN first, and then you have to get approved by Israel. There's no even set up process for veterinarians to get temporary licenses to practice medicine in Gaza the way there is for physicians. So there was a very long road that unfortunately I will continue trying to do that in his memory, but he really wanted that because again, he did not want to evacuate. He wanted to stay there and he wanted international teams of veterinarians to come help him. And the other thing is, I'll just say real quick, is that before this all started, there were about 109, maybe 109 veterinarians operating in Gaza prior to October 2023. Now there are about 9, I believe. And because the remaining, we don't even have them all accounted for, but they've either evacuated, been martyred, been imprisoned, or can't practice due to circumstances. And actually, there was a veterinarian, Dr. Muhammad Qadeh, who was part of the recent prisoner release, who was just released by Israel to his family. I'll just say a couple more things, and then I want to let, of course, other people continue to speak. But in terms of some important things that he embodied, he really supported our work. He supported us all collaborating together. He believed in people across disciplines collaborating together and all of us working together. He was a protector of people and a protector of animals. Again, he really cared about people. He wasn't just like, oh, I'm a veterinarian, so I should only care about animals. He really cared about people and using his profession to not only care for animals, but also to safeguard people. He gave people the benefit of the doubt. That was another big thing that I just wrote down. He never said a bad word about anyone. Like, even if I don't want to say anything, but he never said anything bad about anyone. He always gave people the benefit of the doubt. And I know, you know, I happen to be Muslim. I know there's many people on this call who aren't, but that's part of our religion, is that you're supposed to be like, okay, give your brother, give your sister, give your sibling the benefit of the doubt and work together, especially when you're fighting oppression and injustice. And he had big dreams. He was very ambitious. He was an extremely affectionate father. His wife is texting me saying that the kids are constantly asking for him because he was so affectionate. He had just sent me a video a couple weeks ago of them racing together. And then in terms of the calls to action, oh, and I want to say one other thing. You guys were talking about publishing in journals and things like that. I had actually worked with him on I drafted something and then sent it to him for his approval. But it was part of, I think DAG was involved in the medical abstracts portion of the People's Conference for Palestine. So we had submitted for that, and it was an abstract about how it's important to support local veterinarians that are affected by genocide for all the reasons that I just described. And that was something that I hadn't told him yet, but I wanted to expand that into a paper and have both of us as co-authors on that, which inshallah, I'll still be able to do. But he had reviewed that, and so that was something that was helpful. In terms of calls to action, I want to talk about the AVMA for a second, because just as the AMA has been silent on the medical professionals that are caring for humans, the AVMA has been completely silent about our colleagues. And I want to tell you, we started a campaign to put pressure on the AVMA when Muat went missing. And we had so many people commenting on their Instagram that they disabled comments on their Instagram. They would rather disable comments on their Instagram instead of actually publicly advocating for a colleague who was missing in a genocide zone. They would rather double and triple down on their silence. And this is an organization that 22 days after the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022, they donated $200,000 to our Ukrainian colleagues, and they let out a press statement saying that the veterinary community stands in solidarity with Ukraine. Since then, they have donated, I believe, almost $800,000 to Ukraine, multiple press statements, an art show at the AVMA convention last year to help raise money for them, donating to a mobile clinic. They have not said a word on Palestine, despite the fact that we have sent them thousands of emails from our members and supporters across the country and the world, try to do Facebook comments, Instagram comments. People are DMing them. They would rather double, triple, quadruple down on their silence than say something about our colleague who literally is missing and now is murdered. So we are going to have important calls to action for people who just want to help in the campaign of that. We set up a page on our site that you can go to. It's helpdrmuat.com. It goes to a specific part of our site. I was just revamping that this morning, because then I had to take down some of the things that obviously, like, now we have to change things a little bit. But right now it does have the link to donate to his family, which is who is going to need a lot of support right now. So it has the donate to his family, and it has the join our email list, because we are going to be emailing our email list with important calls to action in terms of pressuring the AVMA, and what number to call and who to email, or scripts and things like that. So anyone who is interested in, these are not going to be time-consuming things. So if you go to helpdrmuat.com, you can donate to his family, you can join our email list. It's so fast, it's so easy, and then you'll stay updated. Because I am absolutely disgusted by and by the way, he follows all of these veterinary institutions: AVMA, World Veterinary Association, Humane Pro for Animals, the NAVC, which is the North American Veterinary Community, which hosts this huge veterinary conference every January. He follows all of these institutions. And as he was missing, all of these institutions on their Instagram were posting inane things like, "Yay, declaws for cats are finally banned in California," and things like that. They were willfully ignoring it. And this is, as we have said so many times for the physicians and the surgeons, this is so disgusting that the AMA is silent on that. It is absolutely unacceptable. And it is absolutely, like, the lack of humanity is so grotesque that, like, I know we all feel this way, that just sometimes it's like, am I living in a nightmare and I'm just going to wake up? Because this does not feel real. This does not feel real that the AMA can remain silent for like, what are we living in? What are we living in? This is just, what will it take? What will it take for the AMA to put out a statement about our colleagues? Because as you guys know, I also consider the human medical professionals my colleagues. That's why I also was on the Hill in meetings with Nadal and Karama when Dr. Abu Sofia went missing. We still are talking about that. We are still talking about that within our organization as well. And we were on the Hill. We were with literature. We was with letters. We had a whole thing where students and other veterinary professionals we had a social media thing, and they were doing videos with signs saying "Free Dr. Osama Abu Sofia." He's our colleague too. I just think we're all colleagues, and I think that's something that I just really want to hone in. Last thing I'll say is that I really do think Muat would have wanted us all to work together. We don't have to have boundaries or borders. We are all safeguarding humanity. And I think working together is a really beautiful way to honor all of the people who have been martyred, because that's just what it's going to take. Like, I always like and appreciate how Nadal mentions, like, we have this opposition that is extremely well funded and extremely organized, and they have been for decades, if not centuries. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take us banding together and not having boundaries or borders or cliques or groups. Like, we all need to band together and collaborate and unite, because we're all fighting for the same thing. It's all the same. It's all the same. It's all good versus evil. And I really do think he was such a beautiful person, like such a beautiful person. Anytime I even asked, like, tell me an amount of money that you could need, I will try to fundraise it to you. Every time he would disappear from the conversation. He didn't want me to fundraise for him. So I really think he would have loved to see his memory be a reason that people were uniting further. And thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much, Mariam. Thank you for joining us. And we're always thankful for your incredible insights about One Health. Dr. Muad is mentioned in our social media. Dr. Mariam Kamal is also on social media. Animal workers, health workers against genocide. Please follow her and contact her if you have any questions. We are going to have a shorter than average webinar today because we are going to South Africa to the International Association of Genocide Scholars meeting. We have a few members of Doctors Against Genocide going there, and our flights are in a couple of hours. And we will share on social media the presentations that we have, and I'll share my screen in a little bit. Elvis Katato is here with us from Congo, and would love to hear from him. As you know, we have been working with Elvis, who is in Goma, on support of the communities of young women who have been unfortunately victims to sexual violence. And if he can give us some updates, we would very much appreciate it. Please, Elvis.
Greetings from Goma. Salam to everyone at the panel. Before I give you the update, Mariam, sorry for your loss. And to the Dark family, our condolences to everyone. I'm going to be very, very short, especially after listening to Mariam. That sad story has just hit me. We have seen our colleague and friend dying every single day, and we have to end the genocide wherever it is happening right now. Thanks once again. To give you a recap, the fund that we received last week or 2 weeks now was allocated to two main actions. The very first one was supporting the young girls that we've got already with us. Those young girls are aged between 13 and 18. As it was mentioned, they were sexually assaulted, and the result of the act led to pregnancy. And most of those young girls end up at the hospital with no support, with no family, and they have to give birth. So we've got the young girls at home. We with the grant, we had the chance to add 2 more. So now we've got 12 young girls and 13 babies living in the same accommodation, where we are providing them with food, with counseling, with time to rest, because they're still young. They have to grow up as every single teen, and also trying to prepare them to start a new life by putting a space for them to start loving themselves and also to accepting what happened to them, even though we know it's very, very difficult. So the fund was allocated to supply them with food, medication, and care. And that is what we have been doing since the very first week of this month. The other side of the other part of the fund was directed to support women and their babies at different hospitals in Goma. Since February, beginning of February, we have seen a lot of numbers of women and their babies stuck in hospitals because they can't afford to pay the hospital bills or any fee related to the hospital. So what we have done, because the banks are closed, there is no money, there is nothing. You can smell hunger in the town. So what we did is we went back since we received the fund, and we started again to free those women. And among them, I already share on WhatsApp a few pictures of the few ladies and their babies that we have been supporting. So far, we have freed 12 women, that means 12 women and their babies, who have been in the hospital for 2 or 3 months with no support from anyone, no food, sleeping on the floor, or sometimes sleeping outside in the hospital compound. So we have supported them to get out of the hospital, but also getting them a means of transportation so that they can go back to their villages. And also we give them a monthly or a weekly provision depending on the budget that we have. Today we travel to Sake, that is 25 kilometers from Goma. It took us about 2 hours to get there because we were taking a family that could not find another way to get there. And that is what we have done today. So far, we are reaching the people that we targeted with a grant, but also we start having new cases. This is just a case that we met with, and I think part of the team already recorded the interview and all the details of the young lady. She is 14. She was taken by the rebels, and they took her to the training center. Even though they knew she was 14, they wanted her to be a soldier. I don't know how she managed to escape, and she came back. Just a few weeks after a few days, she just discovered that she is pregnant. So in the story that we recorded, she told me there were every single night soldier would come in their room. There were a lot of young girls, and they will rape all of them. Now she's with us. Is a story that I can't share with anyone. Is the story, I know earlier on some of you were talking about the mainstream media. We have suffered of the same treatment. The mainstream media doesn't tell the stories of Congolese people, and that is why this genocide is called silence genocide, because no one talks about the suffering of the Congolese people. And now, of course, that story that involves the rebels, we are in the rebels territory where I cannot even put that story out, but that young lady, she's suffering. We are waiting. We already started supporting the young girl. She's still at home with her grandma, but we can't bring her to the house where the other young girls are. But we are waiting. We are hoping she will give birth soon. Then we can take her with us. That's all that we have as an update on our side. And thank you very much once again for all the support that you're giving to Congolese people.
Thank you, Elvis, so much. And please, everyone, we have the link for the donation for Congo. Please be generous. We are ready to send another part of the fund for Elvis and for Hadija to support the efforts on the ground. We're hoping that we can help even more people. So it's the need is massive in Congo, and we're grateful to be connected with Elvis and Philippe, who is also here.
Yeah, I think we just lost Philippe, unfortunately. But Philippe is another colleague also in Congo. He's in Goma. He has another campaign for medical clinics and medications for the victims of genocide. So we're supporting both of these campaigns. Please be generous so we can help them more. This is the least we can do. And bringing up the voice of the Congolese victims of genocide is as important as bringing up the voice of the people of Gaza. And we wanted to hear it in their own voice, with their own accent, from their own clinics, from their own homes. That is part of our mission, to give and to center the voices of the victims and try to support them as much as we can. And yes, as Elvis said, the genocide must stop all over and everywhere. And unfortunately, it's our governments, our countries, our tax money that is complicit in all of these genocides, and even our economy, even our, phones. These are all have Congolese children blood on them. Our phones that we're using every day, our computers. So please support our colleagues in Congo. We're still having a hard time connecting with the colleagues in Sudan, Al-Fashir, because the situation there is even worse in the last week. They could not get any connection at all. And the situation in Gaza is getting worse. I remember, Anthony, we met in DC 10 days ago. We went to our, elected officials, if you can call them so. And I remember when you were there, you were sharing, your prospect of your vision of what's going on, what's the plan of the Israelis. And it was a very dark picture, the one that you were painting. And inside my mind, I was saying that, yes, it is important that Anthony is sharing this, but I hope he is wrong. I hope that we can trust these people, and whatever picture Anthony is painting is not accurate or not true and will not be fulfilled. Unfortunately, it seems what we were saying all along, Anthony, is true. So thank you for joining us, Anthony, again, and we want to hear from you. What is your take on what the doctors have shared, what our colleagues, Mariam has shared, the people from Congo has shared, the violation of the ceasefire. We want to hear from you. We want to learn more from you. I mean, whether we like it or not, we need to hear the truth from the professionals who know the inside of these institutions. So thank you, Anthony. Share with us, please. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My assessment of what will continue to happen is not a fait accompli, meaning that it will be that. It is, if we don't take enough action and don't take steps to actively stop it, that it will be that. Israel will not stop what they are doing. There is no political end to what Israel is attempting to achieve in not only Gaza, but in the West Bank and in the entire region, in their Zionist vision of a greater Israel. They will not stop until they've achieved that. And it's going to take the world, the United States, Western nations, allies, Middle Eastern nations, to step in and stop them from doing this. The ceasefire, it was never intended to be a ceasefire. Our government knew that going into it. When we negotiated this ceasefire, we didn't send diplomats or regional experts or unbiased parties. We sent the president's son-in-law, who has interests in real estate, to broker a ceasefire, which we can see never even the ceasefire never even started. The date of the ceasefire came and passed, but the ceasing of fire didn't happen. It didn't happen then, and it hasn't happened now. It's still the bombing and the artillery and the mortar rounds and the indiscriminate shooting and the combat on the ground. It's still going on. It hasn't stopped. And earlier today, earlier in the webinar, the discussion that was made with regards to the actions that Middle Eastern nations are taking. I agree with that assessment that the voice of the masses has been loud and clear in what's been going on. Our administration is not deaf to it. They're aware of it. They know. I mean, when we've gone with Doctors Against Genocide, when we've gone to the Hill and we've spoken to lawmakers, the responses from them aren't shock and surprise as to what's going on. They know what's going on. And the way I see it is that we can't lose hope in that our voices don't matter, because they do. But we also have to recognize three things in that awareness. We have to maintain constant awareness, everyday awareness to what's going on. Two, we have to look for opportunities. Israel is not some though they think that everything they do is justified and right, it isn't, and they make mistakes. I believe that their attack on Qatar was a gross miscalculation, an arrogant miscalculation, in thinking that through their impunity that they can continue to just do whatever they want because the United States will allow them to do it. Their assessment is true. Their calculation was grossly negligent in the fact that the reason most nations around Israel fear them is not because of their military. The IDF is not a very good military. They have nuclear weapons. Now we have Saudi Arabia going into security agreements with Pakistan, who is also a nuclear nation. That changes the calculus in the region. No more are we going to see Arab nations kowtowing to what Israel, backed by the United States, demands. I think we're going to see a tidal shift in the region, with Arab nations taking more of a firm stance against what Israel does, because the blinders are off. This is a clear and imminent threat to the region, to the world, what Israel is willing to do. They will bomb anyone. They will attack anyone. They will violate every international law. They will do so with complete arrogance in doing it. We see that now. What we need to do in continuing our voice and our message on the Capitol, on social media, in demonstrations, in protest, in letters, in making our voice heard, is continuing where those opportunities are, where when strategic mistakes are made and it opens up the box or pulls down the curtain to what's actually going on. That's when our voices matter even more. That's when awareness matters even more. Right now, when we look at the reason Israel is so firm on not giving up ground in Gaza, remember that since this ceasefire, they have pulled back out of certain areas within the densely populated urban terrain that has been destroyed. They have not pulled back from areas where there's actually occupational control in the areas that are still populated within Gaza. Israel is still within 58 to 62% of the entire strip. And when you consider the majority of it that's been destroyed, they still maintain control of the entire area. They have not relinquished control. But we know that they will not, because they know that they do not want to lose control of the crime scene. As soon as they lose control and people see the truth, like right now we have Qatar that's brought in bulldozers to start moving rubble. And already we're seeing that within that rubble, as many of us knew and said, that there are hundreds to thousands of more dead than there were initially calculated. The truth is coming out, which is why our voices matter even more. Our administration is not going to take action based on moral principle, based on the will of the people. Unfortunately, that's just where we are in our country with our administration. We're going to have to force that change through our voices and through international pressure. And we see that does work. Dr. or Miriam today had brought up things that we had been discussing before with other aspects of the massacre in Gaza. And it is a genocide, but in more than just a genocide, it is a massacre, because it's not just a genocide. It is also, when you look at all the different types of the dehumanization, this is infanticide, the targeting of children. This is familicide, the intentional destruction, dehumanization, and breaking apart of family structure in Palestine, in Gaza, and in the West Bank. The aspects of the genocide isn't just killing people, it's dehumanization, it's the perspective that Palestinians aren't human, so therefore killing isn't wrong, it's just what has to be done. This is all part of this sick, evil, systemic problem that Israel is, this is by design. This is not Israel just behaving badly, which they are, but it's by design. Every aspect of it is designed. The killing of livestock and animals and beasts of burden that maintain the agrarian way of life in Gaza, that's intentional. The killing of pets and the killing of that family human bond that breaks people down. Imagine if your pet were killed in front of you and there's nothing you could do about it. It dehumanizes people. The spread of disease through zoological disease crossing into the human population, that's by design. For example, the rabid dog population within Gaza has been not only allowed to flourish, but intentionally flourishing in areas where the IDF will keep rabid animals and then release them into populated neighborhoods to spread rabies, because rabies is a terminal disease. Once you will die. It is terminal. They know that. This is all by design. The water, the sewage, the electricity, the lack of shelter, the food, the disease, the dehumanization. Every aspect of it is by design. And we can no longer think that Israel will in good faith stop what they're doing, or that Israel's this narrative of Israel, well, it's Hamas. Once Hamas de-arms, then we'll stop. Once we get the hostages back, then we'll stop. Once this, then we'll stop. Once this, then we'll stop. Israel is not going to stop until all of Palestine is under occupation and control. All Palestinians are gone or dead. And then Israel continues along with its greater Israel. And then it doesn't stop there. Then it goes, then it doesn't stop. Israel will not stop. And my assessment is bleak only in the fact that to this point, as we sit here today, I have not seen the world take any firm action. This Trump proclamation of peace and prosperity, we can't be fooled by that. We cannot be fooled by that. That has achieved nothing. All that has done is put the pacifier in the mouth of the world once again for us to think that there's peace on the table when there's not. The killing continues. The famine continues. The starvation continues. The disease continues. 96% of the population within Gaza, even if they still do have a dwelling to live in, which most do not, they're living in open sewage. That kills populations more so than bombing. If we do not take more affirmative, strong, direct action in stopping what Israel is doing, the reality is that will happen. It is absolutely my hope, my dream, my desire, my heart and my soul yearns for the freedom of the Palestinian people. Every waking moment, I'm thinking of them. When I go to sleep at night, when I wake up throughout the night because I can't sleep, nightmares of what I've seen in Gaza. My heart is with the people of Palestine, and more so than anything, I want hope and peace and freedom, and for them to wake up one morning without bombs being dropped, for a young child in Gaza to wake up and have clean water to drink without worrying about if they're going to die or if their parents will die. I want that nothing more than anything in this world. But I'm also realistic to the fact in the wars that I've seen and what I've experienced and what I've seen in what Israel continues to do, and that everything that we've all talked about today, everything we've mentioned, the killing of healthcare workers, the killing of children, the indiscriminate bombing, the starvation, the famine, the disease, the killing of animals, the intentional allowance of animal disease to spread. These are not things that are just happening that we're identifying. This is designed. Israel has designed every aspect of this. It is not by accident. And if we don't take action, deliberate affirmative action, it will continue. It will continue until one of two things happens. Israel is stopped or they achieve their objective. And we all know what their objective is. Let's be honest with each other here. They haven't even been shy about it. Netanyahu himself, Milokowski, when he was at the UN, spoke to the entire UN and told everybody that a Palestinian state will never exist. He said that in no loose terms of gray area. He said it. His own government body, Minister of Finance, Ministry of Defense, Minister of Security have all said that the Palestinians, that Israel will not be safe until every Palestinian is dead. That we have to believe what they say and take it seriously. And if we do not only will we lose Palestine, not only will we lose Gaza, not only will we lose the West Bank, not only will we lose the culture and the history of a wonderful and beautiful people, we'll lose our humanity as a world. We have to do more. And my assessment is bleak, because I want us all to be honest with each other. If as doctors, if you had a patient that was terminally ill, would you just tell them that they're fine? And no, you would prepare them for what's coming. Or if you had a patient that was ill, that they could do something to a treatment or taking care of themselves to live, would you not tell them that? Would you give them a flowery picture of the future if it was bleak? No, you would tell them, because we're obligated to be honest. We're obligated to tell the truth. And when I look at the situation and it hurts me every day, but I also know that the world, the United States, we can do something. Every organization in the world, and especially in the United States, PETA should be against the genocide. Animals, any animal rights group should be against the genocide. Environmentalists should be against the genocide, because it's also leading to an ecocide, which is killing that, that area will be unlivable. Every type of activist in the world, whether you're an activist for insects or an activist for human rights, should be against this genocide. And the fact that we aren't tells me that there's a greater power in control. And until we break that power of control, we won't have freedom. We won't have freedom in our time. We won't have freedom in Gaza, and we will not have freedom in the world.
Thank you. Thank you, Anthony, for sharing this profound and objective assessment of the situation, where the power lies, where their goals are, their intentions are, and where we can make a difference. This is very sobering. We really like to hear from you all the time, because we need just not to live on false hope or to go into despair. We have to be educated and informed with objective analysis and objective plans of what needs to be done so we can continue to do it. Thank you, Anthony. And again, we're trying to have the webinar short today because we are leaving. We have a conference in South Africa that we are participating in as Doctors Against Genocide. It's for the IAGS, International Association of Genocide Scholars. This is one of the biggest genocide scholar associations in the world. And unfortunately, even this one only called it a genocide about a month ago. It's 2 years too late. It's very disappointing. They should be the one who should have called and warned of a genocide and did the forecast a year or two or a decade before the genocide. Because if you have a weather channel that calls out a hurricane after the hurricane hits the people, we would fire all of them. They would have failed. The same goes for the genocide scholar associations and genocide studies that has been hijacked only to paint one narrative and emphasize one narrative, which is about preventing the Holocaust, but not warning about any other genocides, even weaponizing the memory of the Holocaust to justify a genocide of other people, in this case, the Palestinian people. So we are calling there in a way to challenge them, to put them at task, and to see where can the medical community add to this field of study, because we as doctors, we care about preventing the loss of life, about prevention in general. Because if we always wait until the problem happens, until the disease progresses, until the cancer metastasizes, until the genocide happens, it is already too late, and too many lives, too many victims have been lost by the silence and the delayed call by the IAGS. To make things worse, this conference is being hosted by the Johannesburg Holocaust and Genocide Studies, which as an institution refused to call it a genocide yet. So it's going to be an uphill battle. There are protests outside against this institution because they refuse to call it a genocide. So we might be joining the protest from inside and from outside. So hopefully we'll try our best. Wish us some luck. It's in a way a hostile territory there. But we need some, feedback, round of feedback. This is going to be, I mean, it started actually Monday. It's going to start tomorrow for a whole week. So we are going to be there. Maisa, Adla, Yiping, and James are already there. Me and Karam are traveling today. So yeah, we can stop sharing there. We can put in the comments, please, for anyone to look at it. I'm gonna go with a round of reflections, please, with everyone. I'm gonna start with Dr. Brennan. Are you still there, Doctor? Are you with us, Dr. Brennan? We did not hear from you for a while. Are you back in the United States, Brennan? Okay. Until Brennan comes back, Johan has her hand up. Jihan, تفضلي.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
But please, everyone, make it quick because
okay, quick. When I heard today about this military against IDF in Rafah, I remember my colleague, he told me no one can go toward Rafah. I asked him because we want to organize some food for people in Rafah. He told me all the people in Rafah, they came to Mossi, Khan Yunis, nobody. Israel is took over Rafah and control and spread the IDF everywhere. There is no, that's what I mean. This area, it's red zone in control by IDF. And today when I talked to my colleague in Zawaida, he told me the same, what my colleague told me in Mawasi Khan Yunis. So, it's really what's happened about ceasefire, the violation, and they accuse Hamas. And I think Hamas denied that they don't have any connection with what's happened in Rafah today. Thank you. Just this for clarifying.
Yeah, thank you, Jihan. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, they always falsifies excuses to keep their plans, criminal plans. Brennan, Dr. Brennan, welcome back. I don't know, are you back in the United States? Are you still in Africa? Where are you? Alaikum salam.
I'm currently in the Central African Republic. I'll be here until February or March, but I wanted to say that since this if we call it a ceasefire, the ceasefire announcement, I think I felt with an even more deepening sense of just sadness and I don't even know how to put it into words that I think a lot of our friends and colleagues in Gaza feel. And of course, they're grateful to maybe be able to get some sleep without the constant sound of F-16s and drones and bombs 24 hours a day, but that doesn't make it any less of a genocide. And I think every single person of our colleagues and our friends and families, for some of us, know that, and that just makes our solidarity even more important, that even if there is not even one more single gunshot, somebody else said this, I think Francesca Albanese and others have said this, that even if there's not even one single additional gunshot or bomb dropped, it's still a genocide. The genocide still continues. We still have to fight it. We still have to stand in solidarity in mental and spiritual and physical and economic ways with our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you, Brennan. Good to hear back from you. Hopefully, we will have more time. We want to hear more from you next week if you can, or any week after. And we want to hear more about your work in Africa, please. Dr. Anar Silitz, are you there, Anar? Anar?
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm with children right now. So sorry for all the noise. I just want to say thank you to our speakers. Always wonderful to hear these incredible voices. I want to particularly thank my colleague, Dr. Sidwa, for being here and for his excellent work that many of us in the trauma world have been cheering on. Something that we've discussed as trauma surgeons is, our bread and butter is often this concept of damage control surgery, where we do things routinely and accept things that are truly intermediate steps. We preserve life to fight another day, and we do that because it really, really works. And I know this is a little bit, in the weeds of our field, but what I'm talking about is staged surgeries for the most severe injuries. And I think there's a useful metaphor in that for this situation, because what we've seen in these last few weeks is sort of a damage control situation, where some steps have been made, some really important steps, such as the ceasefire, as much as it is actually a ceasefire. That is really, really important to have that preservation of life and the release of some aid. But at the same time, it is absolutely the wrong thing to do, absolutely the worst thing to do, to slow down our efforts, to help our colleagues, to help address the root causes of how this happened, to platform our colleagues every chance we get. I think it's incredible. I really, really loved reading Dr. Sidwa and colleagues' article in NEJM, but I think obviously the next step is to help our colleagues in Gaza get published in the same forum. I really appreciate the moment that we're in right now. It is definitely a moment to intensify all of our efforts as healers. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this, and all the best to you in South Africa.
Thank you, Anar. Thank you. We have Dr. Oksana.
Today, I don't have anything to add at all.
I know it's a tough day on all of us, believe me. Yeah, we all feel beyond depressed. Dania?
Yeah, we tried to convince the world it was never about the hostages. Now they got their hostages back. So now we can just double down, prove to everybody what we've been saying for the past 2 years, prove to everybody that's been gaslighting us and just telling us, release the hostages, we'll stop the bombing. They used to tell us, you're trying to protest for Gaza, why don't you go to Gaza? We saw how many times they've sent the people on the flotilla back. So we just have to keep just continuously, fearlessly and fiercely just double down on our efforts. These people, this entity, whatever we want to call them, they don't stop on their own, and we have to do everything in our power to stop them. And best of luck to you guys, to the DAG family. May power be with you. May you move hearts and minds, and sending all my love.
Thank you, Dania. Yes, promise breakers, people who cannot keep their words, are people you can never trust, whether they are in the United States administration or Israel or any genocidal entity. This is a lesson for us and for the whole world, that these people are people you cannot trust. You cannot have any agreements with them. They don't keep their words. The only way to stop these systems is to dismantle these systems. They are not repairable. They are inconsistent with life, inconsistent with humanity, inconsistent with justice, inconsistent with all that all people of good conscience all over the world have grown up to learn about decency, humanity, basic, human principles. Thank you, Dania. Martha, are you there? Martha? I know Martha has been traveling a lot now these days for a good reason. Dr. Sui, if you want to share anything at the end, because we want to close the webinar because we are about to travel.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, go
I
ahead.
just want to say something to all of you and to myself mainly. First, thank you very much. I think we cannot be depressed, okay? We can be very, very angry. And anger is good because anger will make us fight. So all the best to your travels. And we just got to double down, okay?
Yes.
They cannot win. We must win, okay? Because if they win, that's the end of the world.
Yes, I agree. Feeling depressed or feeling desperate is a luxury that the children and the women and the victims in Gaza, in Congo, in Sudan, the starving victims, the abused victims, it's a luxury they cannot afford.
Yeah, and we
And
cannot
it is a
afford.
luxury we cannot afford if we want to be their defenders. We are their voice, we are their defenders. Maybe a time will come that we can reflect and we can feel bad or depressed about it or not, but this time is not now. They are still at risk. They are still at mercy of the perpetrators, of the criminals in Israel, the genocide structures all over the world that enables these crimes, live streamed in front of all of us. We cannot live in a world like this. We either fix it or we're all doomed, unfortunately. But thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. Please keep it up. We need to double down. We need to stay strong. If not for us, I know we're all feel exhausted and torn apart and broken many times over, but we cannot afford to feel desperate or depressed. And
We're fighting, okay?
we need to fight. We need to fight. We need to win for the sake of all humanity. Thank you, and we'll see you again next week. Please keep working, keep doing everything, keep brainstorming, keep speaking up, keep thinking, keep organizing, keep collaborating. We need every single one, every single voice of you, and do whatever you are good at. Every action is important. Every action adds something. Can be a big action, can be a small action, but everything builds a momentum, builds a movement, and it's up to you to decide what you can do. But you have to do something. Not doing anything at all is siding with the genocide perpetrators. Thank you. We'll see you next week, inshallah.
See you next week, inshallah.
Thank you.
Safe travels.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.
Okay, be strong.